You're listening to day one of our Fundraising Tech Expo. This is the first session where Wes Moon, co-founder and COO of Wisely, talks to Troy McKnight from Kelowna's Gospel Mission about how Troy used Wisely to fundraise over 68,000 Canadian dollars in less than 2 months during the global pandemic with no prior fundraising experience. The title of this presentation is Onboarding a New Fundraiser in 60 Days.
We're going to be talking about onboarding a fundraiser in 60 days. And this isn't just any fundraiser to your organization. This is someone new to fundraising that we're going to highlight, and really a nice success story. So as we get into this, I like to lead any presentation with a quote. And in this particular one, a journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. These are the things that we know must take place. To get somewhere, we have to just start moving in that direction. So I'm really excited to talk about the first steps of Troy, who you're going to meet in a minute, his journey from not being a fundraiser to being a star. I know that makes him feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I see no other way to say it. So a little bit more about me. You heard my bio. I've been working in nonprofit for the last 20 years. I've worked with a number of large charities and small charities. So really from the biggest in Canada to organizations where there's only one or two fundraisers. And one of the founders of Wisely. And in the bottom right, there's a picture of my kids. That is in a restaurant. So obviously it's at least 18 months old. My daughter's 15, which really makes me feel old at times, and my son 13. Both of them are holding up pretty well through the pandemic, all things considered. We have pretty busy lives and a little bit stuck at home right now. So things have really changed for us over the last year and a half. Next up, we've got Troy. And Troy, if you want to just turn your camera on, I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable and I'm going to read your bio. This is what we do here. So Troy McKnight has over 20 years of leadership experience across various local churches in New York, British Columbia, Alberta, New Zealand, and New Brunswick. He holds a Master's of Divinity from Asbury Seminary or Theological Seminary. In December 2020, Troy joined the development team at Kelowna's Gospel Mission, where he focuses his time on developing corporate and community relations. As a passionate lifelong learner, Troy enjoys meeting new people, taking on new challenges, and developing new skills along the way. He is married with 3 teenagers and has a handsome golden retriever who keeps him busy and entertained. When not working, Troy enjoys the incredible skiing and mountain biking that the beautiful Okanagan Valley offers. Troy, 3 teenagers first. That's got to be a handful.
I'm tired all the time. So yeah, no, it's been and again, like you during this pandemic, it's been a very interesting season for us as well. They are all ready to get back out there and start connecting again. But there's been a gift in that where we've had a lot more time as a family to spend time together and create new ways to stay entertained. We're very fortunate and blessed to live where we do, though. There's been lots of hiking, lots of mountain biking, lots of outdoor activities that are socially distanced. So we're really thankful for that. So yeah, pleasure to be here today. Thanks, Wes.
Yeah, and Troy, just for all the dog lovers here, tell us about your dog. Its name?
Yeah, sure. Blaze. I always tease the kids that he's my favorite child. My kid with a coat. My kid with a coat on, as we call him. But yes, Blaze is our 4-year-old golden retriever. That's a picture of him there. There's a hiking trail about 5 minutes behind our house, and that's a stream that he likes to go hunting for rocks in. But he is lots of fun and never a boring moment with him. And he's a trail dog who chases us on mountain bikes as well as on snowshoes. So yeah, he loves the outdoors.
That's very cool. So Troy, like, we know a little bit about you personally, but who are you professionally? You've worked really all over North America, but also New Zealand.
Yeah. No, I've had the privilege to serve in a number of places after studying in Kentucky, which I never thought I would spend time in Kentucky, but learned to love and appreciate the South. I was really privileged to spend a number of years in New York State, and particularly had a a wonderful time leading on a team in Canandaigua, New York, where we saw our church family triple from 400 to well beyond 1,800 in the 4 years I was there. And also that was my first taste of fundraising as we went through a $2.3 million campaign to see our campus expand and our services to the community grow. And so exciting times there, as well as some time leading here in the Okanagan, where my wife's family is from. And then New Zealand was a huge adventure where I had the opportunity to join a large church on the North Shore of Auckland, and I led a staff of 25 while I was there as the pastoral team lead, giving coaching, leadership, mentoring to the team to keep them healthy and focused so that the church family can continue to grow, move forward, and serve their community well. So yeah, I've been really blessed to have a variety of experiences.
Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of your career, Troy, has been in around sort of the community building and community management.
Correct.
Yeah, and and then you made the jump into fundraising recently.
I did. Yeah, we found ourselves after having teenagers, as you talked about, 3 teenagers, and them being incredibly flexible as we've traveled all around the world. It was time for us to put down some roots, especially for their high school and later middle school years. And as I said, my wife's family is from the Kelowna area, and we made the decision to move back home and provide them with some of that stable space for these years. We thought that was going to be important. I assumed that I would be heading into another position in church ministry, but those doors didn't open, and new opportunities did. And so through some connections that I had here in the community, I joined the Kelowna Gospel Mission team here in just late December of 2020. So
yeah, if I remember correctly, it was just a couple of days before New Year's.
Yeah, I had a week of onboarding, I guess we'll call it, prior to Christmas, and then we had the Christmas. I took a few weeks off over Christmas through the transition between roles, and and then I really launched into things in the new year in 2021.
Well, fantastic. So now that we know you a little bit, I think what we want to do is then move into what are we going to cover off today? So the very first thing we're going to look at is Kelowna's Gospel Mission. Really, like, what are you as an organization? How do you do your fundraising? We're then going to take a look at the job that you were asked to do. And this is really before you started, the first days on the job, and really some of the results that you were able to produce over your first 60 days, really, as a fundraiser. So with that, we're going to get started. I will also, just as a housekeeping note, before we go too far here, if you do have questions, please post them in the Q&A. Alex has the opportunity to interrupt us, to ask any of those questions should we have the right moment. And if not, we'll handle them all at the end. But if there is something timely, Alex can interrupt us. And Alex, I encourage you not to feel uncomfortable in saying, hey, Wes, we have a good question here.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So here's a map of North America. We have people from, in fact, even overseas, South America. So what you're looking at is really the map as it's sort of centered on Canada and the United States. And that little sunshiny spot is, maybe, Troy, I should have put a cloud there, is Kelowna, which is really nestled, it's a valley nestled in between 2 mountain ranges. And I hope one day to actually visit Kelowna. I hear it's such a wonderful place. But I thought it was important to understand, where it is. Is there anything to say about Kelowna before we move on?
Other than when the world opens up, please come and visit us. It's a beautiful semi-arid desert here in Canada, wine growing region with a lake and every outdoor activity you could possibly imagine. So well worth a visit.
Yeah. If you know Vancouver or Portland, it's northeast. Mm-hmm. Perfect. So this is a non-marketing picture of the Kelowna's Gospel Mission. I pulled it right from Street View. So this is what it looks like if you're walking down the street. It might be a little different. I see people are not wearing masks in this photo. It's probably a couple years old at least. But Troy, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do as an organization?
Yeah, well, we're a multi-layered organization that serves people who are struggling with homelessness and addiction here in Kelowna. And actually, we have multi-sites. So lots of people think of us as just, this is our main shelter, which is located on Leon Avenue in Kelowna, and it houses 60 beds right now. So we have 60 residents, all men, who who live here, and we provide shelter and food, case management, and coaching to help them make that step from homelessness into sustained housing. Our case management partners with a number of different other not-for-profits, as well as our Interior Health Authority here, to help provide wraparound services that provide them with the care that they need to make steps forwards. This year with the pandemic, obviously new challenges came, and there was more need in our community when it came to the homeless community and providing safe spaces. And so we opened our second shelter that was deemed to be an emergency shelter for the winter at our Doyle location, but ended up being extended now through BC Housing. So it's going to be a full-time shelter. It is co-ed, and it provides another 60 spaces for people to have shelter, food, case management, and working again with our partners to provide mental health support, as well as movement towards sustainable housing. We also have 4 houses that we own in the community that focuses on women-specific programs. 2 of them are for women moving from addiction to health and freedom. One is focused mainly on under-resourced seniors, and so it provides sustainable housing for single senior women, providing with a safe community that they can be in where they can have affordable housing. And the 4th house for women is focused around women in transition, especially women in transition who are have multiple children or are finding difficulty finding spaces where they can actually connect in and be. We also have a not-for-profit dental clinic that we run that is open to anybody who is under-resourced or underinsured in our community. We recognize that there are a number of families who work full-time but do not have any kind of dental care. We believe oral care is incredibly important to overall health, and so it is available to anyone. We work on a sliding scale, so you pay what you can afford, and we look to provide sustainable services to our greater community through our dental center. We also have a thrift store, which is a funder as well as a bit of a social enterprise where we can have some of our residents connecting and working. We provide, when they do move into sustainable housing, we provide free clothing and furniture to our residents, but also our local community can shop there, and all funds come back into the mission. With the pandemic, we purchased 2 new outreach vans. So we have a team of 5 who head out 3 times a day into the community to provide sustainable food, meeting people right where they're out on the street. Casework begins there, hygiene packs, water, food, tents, blankets, you name it. They just meet people where they're out in the street and help move them into sustainable spaces. And lastly, we have a new momentum program where we have single dorm rooms, helping our residents move from the larger dorm into single rooms where they can start to transition, still have a caseworker for support. They begin to build soft skills. They work towards employment, having full-time roles, yet within a smaller supportive community where they start to learn about budgeting, and then that helps them make that next step. And we found that that really increases people's success when they move out from the shelter situation into sustainable housing. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know that was long, but that's kind of the scope of what we do.
Yeah, so it sounds, Troy, like you have a very multifaceted approach, and you're deep into the community in a number of different areas. And you touched on it a little bit, but the impact that COVID and the pandemic has had on your organization, obviously you've needed to, you mentioned requiring some vans. Were there other financial impacts to your organization?
Well, certainly we've had to pivot the way that we've provided services. We used to have a day service program where people, sometimes up to 100 people 3 times a day, who were not at that point housed or choosing not to be housed, would come in and receive services. And we've been unable to do that during the pandemic. We've needed to have a closed system in order to keep people safe. And so what we have done is, again, we increased our shelter space by starting a new shelter this year. But yes, the vans allowed us to be able to go out and meet people where they were at. And we've been able to move people more quickly through mobile case management and through delivery of services in a mobile way into sustainable housing. That also has been increased through BC Housing during this time. So that's been a big pivot. Certainly impact-wise, we needed to fundraise around $200,000 in short order within, I think, 5 or 6 months to purchase those vans and get them kitted out to be on the streets, as well as hire 4 extra staff for our outreach team as we've been pivoting in that way. And so, yeah, there have certainly been challenges financially. But I will say overall, if you were to look at our financial picture, we have been incredibly impressed and thankful for the way that the community has recognized the needs. And certainly this year we've had a very good year where people have stepped up, and giving has been very, very strong as people recognize the need for increased care during this time of the pandemic.
Perfect. So for those of you that don't know, I decided to put some demographics together on Kelowna, and there is really a little bit of an aging or retired population there. Looking at almost a quarter of the population being 60 plus, and also on the income side, there is a good chunk of individuals, so like a 30%, whose household income is 100,000 annually, which is a really great thing if you're fundraising. But there's also a very high percentage in the low income. And Troy, does that play out with how you sort of see Kelowna?
Yeah, certainly there you can see that there can be huge swings in economic disparity. So we as I said, a semi-arid desert where our winters are gentle, our summers are long and warm. We're in wine country. It is a very popular place, not just for people around Canada, but also a number of people from other countries tend to come here to retire. And so you do have a retired population with lots of income. But then you do also, as you say, there's some disparity, and we do have a number of people who are facing the challenges of homelessness also in our community. And so you do get sometimes this large gap, and there has often been friction with how do we bring those two together so that we start to remove the stigma that often exists between people when it comes to people who are facing homelessness and those perhaps who are a little more settled economically. And so we're working really hard to try to bring the community together to help people see that this is not an us and them type of scenario, but this is about an us. We're people, we're a community, and actually when we work together, we can build a stronger community. So there's certainly challenges, but I think there's also huge opportunities for us here in our community, and we're seeing that as we move forward.
Awesome. So when we think about Kelowna's fundraising, when I was introduced to your organization through your boss Mike and Ben Johnson, your marketing agency, really the method of fundraising that you were employing was on one side sort of like these community drives and events, and on the other side, really strong direct marketing program where you have a cadence of mail and email. And the opportunity that we saw here was around mid-level and a major, and really developing a program there. The thing that we're then looking at is if that mid-level and major was the opportunity. Troy, you were hired to grow community giving. And you accepted this job. You must have had some feelings.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I have 3 teenagers, and they're eating me out of house and home. And so, yeah, I needed a job. But beyond that, no. I saw this as a great opportunity to take the skills that I had grown over the years within kind of the faith-based world that I've been working in, which was it's a highly relational role that I was in as a pastor, and also a role where I was not. I've never been a fundraiser, but certainly part of being a pastor in a church is about continuing to raise funds, growing the organization, being sure that you have a healthy bottom line. So I felt like I had some crossover skills that I could kind of bring to bear in a different environment. And when I saw the opportunity to be in a highly relational role that would really be about elevating the personal touch that we have with our mid-level major donors, as well as corporate donors and some of our faith-based communities, I felt like it would be a great fit for me. So yeah, I was excited to be able to be kind of on the ground, hopefully having an impact in a space that I felt really deserved and needed the kind of energy that Kelowna Gospel Mission is giving. So
yeah, so if I were to summarize that, like, you're very good at connecting with people, and you kind of took and you understand the impact the mission has on the community. So it's something that you care about, and you thought this would be a nice fit for you. And I tend to agree. It's a great decision.
Yeah.
So as you come into the role, then you have to figure out how to be strategic. And at your fingertips, you have some, databases, some other employees who do some fundraising. What were some of the first steps that you took?
Well, it was overwhelming. I'll admit. I had to figure out exactly what databases we were using and how those worked. We currently have Razor's Edge NXT, which was also a great program for me to kind of start to dip into. But that was a steep learning curve for someone who had never used something like that before. Very thankful that my boss, our director of development, Mike Morrison, was actually we were in a socially distant space where we could yell back and forth, and so he steered me in the right direction and got me started and was so open to the questions that I had. But basically, I just needed to start to kind of figure out the software. But then also the big question for me was, where do I start when I have this database of tens of thousands of people who have given various amounts over the years? And I'll admit it was overwhelming. I kept asking Mike, I need to figure out how to narrow this down so I know where to best give my energy, because the first couple of weeks I would lay awake at night and think about the number of donors that I really felt like deserved care and support and that kind of personal touch. But I really was struggling to know where to begin each and every day, and that's kind of where we got introduced to you.
Yeah, exactly. So really, the place that we started in, and Troy and I spent a little bit of time together. Mike, his boss, made the decision to start working with Wisely, and we started to focus in on looking at your past donors, fishing in your own pond, if you will. And we took a look at your your past marketing donors, your monthly givers, and some community groups, really all in that effort to build the pipeline to major gifts. And that's where we came in and helped. This is a place where you can, if you don't have something like Wisely, you can still do this on your own. Excel and looking at past gifts. Like if people have a lot of past giving, great place to start, by the way. But really starting to tackle that and prioritize it is key. So Troy, your first couple of days on the job, after we met, I think we met, give or take, on January 15th. That's where we set you up. And I gave you a task. And that task was, we sat down, we assigned a couple donors to your portfolio. For those of you that are not familiar with the term portfolio, I'm going to call on Troy to explain that to you.
My portfolio on Wisely is just a focus group of donors that I am beginning to build relationships with and start to actually qualify and cultivate relationships as I begin to move towards soliciting greater gifts and then stewarding those folks that are engaged and giving as we go forward. Big shout out to Frontier as well, who've been a huge part of my learning curve. They took me through a moves management seminar, which helped me understand some of those terms, which I'm still honestly coming to grasp with. But yeah, so Wes introduced me to Wisely and showed me how I could start actually, I guess we'll call the word fishing, but fishing not blindly, but with real intention in our existing donor pool. And to me, that was like the huge gift of Wisely. As someone who was new to fundraising, I wasn't always sure where to start, but with Wisely's AI mining our database, every day I could look at new prospects and they would actually help me sort through and prioritize. Okay, here is a high value donor, and this person is very likely to be making a gift. And they would even give me an idea of the range of time in which that next gift might come, so that I could prioritize as I was building my portfolio. Who do I reach out to first? Who do I start connecting with? Who is more likely to be responsive and open? And so for me, on the first days on the job, it alleviated a lot of the anxiety of knowing what was next or what to do today, because Wisely helped me get organized and start to build. And that sounds like a pitch, but that's just the truth. It's been such a help to me as I've gotten started. So,
well, we're just happy to be a part of your success, Troy. So the very first thing is, like, we started to then help you prioritize. Your first connection was all about stewardship. And, I generally recommend, and a very smart gentleman once told me this, a mentor, when you're thanking a donor, you really thank them for their gift. You ask them what motivated it, and shut up and listen, were his exact words.
Yep.
And Troy, you did this. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, again, a huge gift to me is Wes provided a bit of mentorship at the beginning. As one of my wise mentors said along the way too, is when you talk to people, good things happen. And that's been some of my discovery over my early days here. And so just the ability to prioritize who to call, and then to start just making some phone calls, and people being incredibly open and excited and pleased that someone was taking the time to simply call, to thank them. And then I got a chance to hear some stories about what actually inspires them to give, and I want to be clear, some people didn't really want to chat, and that was fine. That was good. And I was able then to mark them in my portfolio as maybe not a warm lead that I'm going to continue to pursue in the moment. But many of them were super happy to chat, filled me in around family and what was going on with their life. Many talked about the struggles in pandemic time and how isolated they felt and how much they appreciated the call. And it allowed me to start to build some, information in my portfolio around some of these donors that I still have not met face to face. And I'm looking forward to those kind of coffee meetings and lunches with some of them. They're already kind of pre-booked for when health orders ease. But it just gave me the opportunity to start to actually get to know them as people and to be able to introduce myself a little bit too. But mostly it was really about thanking, asking about inspiration. And like Wes said, I just did my best to shut up and listen. And I learned a lot.
Yeah. And I still get nervous today in talking to someone new. The objective of thanking someone for their donation really is to thank them, understand why they gave. And that is really good for the donor. But it's just as good, Troy, for you as the fundraiser, because it makes it very comfortable for them to come back to you. They know you, or you to make the call to say, hey, we have this need that we're trying to fill. Would you be interested in helping us solve that problem?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think relationship leads to resources. And so the fact that I'm starting to build those relationships through that genuine, thankful, and it's true, we are genuinely thankful for these folks, for the people who donate. We could not do what we do without them. They're key to our organization. And so, yeah, to start to build those relationships does open the door and makes that second and third call much easier. And it's been interesting to see how even sometimes those phone calls, if someone has needed to drop by, socially distanced, to drop off a check, I've been asked to come to the front a few times to just say, hey, we want to see who this person is that we've talked to, this person who's called and thanked. And so already I can see relationships growing with some of our mid-level donors. So
yeah. So Troy, I saw a question come in through the chat, and I'm dying to ask you this question. So Ashley writes, when you were calling constituents, how recently had they made their gift? Some context. Ashley is a new fundraiser, and the fear is if they call on a prospective major gift donor 6 to 12 months after they made a gift, would they think something was up? Did you make any of those calls? Can you provide any insight there?
Yeah, I mean, I've made a number of calls like just days after they've received a gift. We've received a significant gift, and again, because my focus really has been on genuinely thanking and getting to know them. Most people have been very open to that and really thankful. They haven't, and again, I haven't followed up with, oh, and by the way, here's this next thing. I've just actually called and thanked and gotten to know them a little bit. And so, yeah, no, I've not received any kind of pushback like, hey, what's up? I mean, there are a few donors I've called, like, I guess that at first they're a little bit like, we haven't had calls before. What's going on? Is this a new way to kind of to maybe shake us down? But when they discover it's genuinely to thank them, and I'm not taking a lot of their time, people tend to soften and they're very open to that. So I've not had any of that as of yet.
Yeah, and just one further point on that impression about being shook down. If you lead with a thank you and you ask for money, it's not a thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's a thank you, let it be a thank you. And again, I think the question around that's been a key question for me is kind of what inspires you to give, because that does unlock. Some people will say, oh, I don't just want to do some good. That's great. But for other donors, it will really unlock some something really specific and powerful about why they are connecting with you and your organization. And I think the more you can learn about that, the better you understand how to perhaps connect them with areas of passion when it comes to moving forward. So I think that's just really key.
Yeah. And we probably could do a whole session just on this, but we got to keep going because we do have a time limit today. Really, the second piece then, after that phone call, that initial piece of stewardship, you're then deciding, do I want to keep this donor in my portfolio? Do I want to continue to manage them and take them through a process, or moves management, if people are familiar with that term, to get to that next gift, which might be different than their past gifts. So I do like to personally say, if you want to change someone's habit in giving, it requires a collision or an intervention of some sort. Otherwise, people will continue to do what they're used to doing with you. And you then have your thank you, Troy, and then you're listening to them. What are some of the decisions that you're making to see if you want to keep them in your portfolio, or if you think, well, we'll just keep them in our general marketing pool, for the next while at least?
Yeah, I'll be honest, this is a growing edge for me. And Wes and I talked about this a while ago. I like people. So I see a reason for almost everyone to be in my portfolio, but that will leave me with like tens of thousands of people in my portfolio, so I can't do that. So for me, it's coming down to, right or wrong, for me, it comes down to the connection that we're having in our conversation and whether they seem open to having a follow-up or that next conversation along the way, where they're open to another phone call, or like I said, I've had a few people say, oh, you know what, I can't wait to have coffee when all this is done. To me, that's like a great indicator that they want to continue that conversation and get to know me more personally. And so it's really been it's been about the connection piece for me and how they're responding in that conversation. Some people, we don't even have phone numbers for some people. So one of it for me is, if I've written an email and someone writes a warm email back, if I can then write back again and ask for a contact number, because I'd love to follow up and thank them personally. If they're open to that, that helps me also assess kind of where we're going. Other people said, you know what, I'm not really interested in sharing my number, but I would like to see you face to face in a couple of months. That also has happened a few times. And so, so I'm still honestly learning, but that's how I'm doing it, based upon that interaction and their response. So.
Yeah, and as you're building up a portfolio, really that's the thing to do. And when your portfolio grows too large, Wisely will help you, but you'll have to do this at some point on your own, where you really need to focus in on your top 100, top 150, maybe your top 200, depending on how your donors give and if it's transactional or transformational. So as we then move on, you're making these introductions, you're bringing people into your portfolio, and you're then offering someone that I like to call this white glove service. And the white glove service, or donor concierge, creates that relationship that starts to elevate over time. And as I see it, it also opens the door for a donor to actually contact you. If there's a problem, if they saw something in the news, if they want to learn something, you're not pushing it, the donor's pushing it. And that tells you some very important things about who that donor is. But you started doing this, Troy. Have you got any stories?
Oh yeah, we've a few for sure. Even just this past week, I connected with a donor that Wisely kind of highlighted for me, and also they had made a significant gift to one of our frontier campaigns, and I wanted to follow up with them just to say thank you. And out of my kind of connection over email to start with, they wrote back right away and said, boy, I'd love to have coffee, and by the way, maybe you could help me with this. And so they just had a question and an issue with how their receipting had downloaded online, and they were looking for it. And so I was able to then actually work with our department, sort out what the issue was within about 15 minutes, and was able to get right back to them and say, absolutely, here's what you need to do. This is what needs to be done. And then again, a follow-up connection with that person saying, wow, thank you so much. This has made my day. It's, they just were so thankful that I was able to make that connection. So that's been huge. We also, again, my director of development, Mike Morrison, he has a connection with a family foundation that he's been sharing with me, and we've been building that connection over this our community outreach van project that we're in. And just the other day, they're an older couple, and we said, would it be okay if we came by socially distanced, just park the van out in front of your home so you could get a chance to see what has happened through your investment and the difference that it's making in the community. So we actually had that chance to go, and we delivered the van, and then we stood back socially distanced. They were able to check it all out, and just the response was amazing. For them to be able to physically see what their investment had purchased, but also to understand clearly how that was having a further impact in the community going forward. And then out of that conversation came the offer of another gift before we actually left the yard, because they just recognized what was going on. So it was just, yeah, it's been huge. And that's just one of a couple instances that we've seen so far. One led to a bigger gift. The other one has led to a further relationship and another conversation. And so I'm trying not to measure success by size of gift, but I think strength of connection is what I'm looking to build as I move forward. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had in one particular instance, you talked about a relationship where someone made a significant gift through marketing, had a negative experience, and you turned that negative experience into a positive experience with virtually no effort. Without the white glove service, that would have remained a negative experience, and you may have lost them as a donor instead of having them potentially be an even larger donor in the future. Mm-hmm. And then really that stewardship piece that you're working on with those vans literally turned into money. So this white glove service is one of those things that elevates the relationship, which, as you said, Troy, when you talk to people, good things happen. And really it's helping make those connections at the right time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, to recap, this is not rocket science. This is, essentially major gift fundraising 101, where you search for some good prospects, your first contact with stewardship, you assign those donors to your portfolio, you set up a portfolio, you provided that white glove service, and money started flowing in. So all of this, Troy, in your first 60 days. So, for anyone listening in, this is really good news for Kelowna's Gospel Mission. It's good news for Troy, and it's good news for the community of Kelowna. And it really, what Troy was doing was watering the grass. And if you water your grass, if you have a lawn and you water it, it's usually greener than the neighbors who don't. And really that's the simple process that Troy's been employing, is he's been watering his grass. And if we take a look at the results then, so in his first 60 days as a fundraiser, he built a portfolio of 145 donors. He raised in cash $68,000. So these are not pledges, these are just outright gifts. And his first year portfolio value in just the first 2 months that Troy built himself was worth $150K. Over time, if Troy then, or Kelowna's Gospel Mission starts really working on these 5-year pledges that some of the larger fundraising organizations love to employ, you're looking at, in a couple of months, he built a portfolio worth $500,000. And Troy, when you were hired, what was your really like your cash raised goal for your first year?
I didn't really have one. To be honest, I didn't have one to start with. I was just looking to make some connections, and so together we set a goal of 150,000 for my first year, to give me something to start to move towards. And so so that's kind of what it was. And we're approaching that. This month probably we'll hit that goal. So
so that's 4 months in. 5 months in, you've already hit your annual goal. And let me tell you, you haven't worked in a charity in December or November, and it's bonkers. you're going to see some really great results then from the relationships you're building today. So I'm really excited, Troy, with being attached to your success. Personally, I think you're going to be an all-star fundraiser. You've started off the race quite well. You're an eloquent speaker. So, like when I look at this, and one of the things that I always wanted to be able to support is to be able to find someone who really cares about your organization and be a connector of human beings and help them achieve what they want to achieve for the organization. And I really feel we hit the mark with how we did our work with you, but we only just guided you in the right direction. You went and did all the work. So really excited about what we're seeing here.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And again, I don't know what I don't know. I keep telling Wes that I don't know. I don't know if this has been, I'm learning, I guess it's been successful, and that's great. And I'm excited about it, but I still feel like I'm really just I'm at the beginning stages. I think there's lots more to learn, and even within Wisely, I think it can help me even more than I'm using it right now. So yeah, it's been a growing edge for me, but certainly the start has been beyond my expectations, and I'm super thankful for your support personally, Wes, obviously, but also for what Wisely has helped me achieve. So
awesome. So I'll really leave you with this quote: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Absolutely believe in this, and we're seeing it with Troy and Mike and the team at Kelowna's Gospel Mission, who are out there trying to do some really good work for the community, and they're seeing really great success. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alex if there's any questions, and if you wanted to leave a comment for Troy, just to assure him that he's actually on the right track here, that would probably be pretty nice.
So yeah, we actually have one question from Nicola. I'm just gonna, can you guys see that in the Q&A, or do you just want me to read it out loud?
Why don't you read it? Ask the question.
Sure, yeah. Nicola would love to get a better idea of how using Wisely, as it's still fairly new to her as a piece of software, like basically how Wisely is used. She wants to ensure that she says, want to ensure that I'm bringing in the money that will increase my overall portfolio value. Would be great to get some tutorials. I'm unable to stay longer as I'm off to another meeting, but would like to connect.
Okay, well, make sure that we follow up with Nicola.
Sure.
But really, the key here when you're building up your portfolio is to make sure that you're building up your portfolio with people who will give. Fundraisers, their most valuable asset in their career is their time. So there's Kelowna's Gospel Mission has tens of thousands of donors in their history, and Troy could call each one and leave a voicemail, or he could try to build a relationship with the top 2% of that group, and really focus his time and effort on the organizations or the individuals that will pay yields. Does that make sense, Alex? Am I answering that question correctly, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. If yeah, to me that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think too she was asking questions maybe not so much for this conversation, but I think maybe for you folks as the designers and owners of the program, to give her some coaching around that, which again that's a huge gift when you can get that. So
yeah, absolutely. So any other questions as we wrap up here? Troy, there's a nice comment here. Such a great success story, Troy. You clearly have a gift for building relationships with people. That's ultimately what it's about. Well done. Who's that from? I can't actually see the name because it's
Naomi.
Naomi. Yeah. There we go. I had to expand my window there. Bill Housley. Hey, Bill. what will tomorrow look like? If we're talking about Troy, I'm betting tomorrow, if we're looking at next year, Troy's pulling $1 million in for that organization on pledges over a 5-year basis. But there's a couple of steps and hurdles that we have to climb for him to get there.
A huge thanks to Troy and to Wes for today's webinar. If you do want to find out more about Wisely and how it can help your fundraising efforts, click the link in the description or visit wisely.ai to book your free, no obligation demo. You can also sign up for a 1-month free trial by clicking sign up now on the website.